Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give people a couple more minutes to join, but in the meantime, we're just going to go through some housekeeping. So first, please feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A function that you can see at the top of your screen. We will answer the questions at the end, so we'll first have a presentation and then we'll get to the Q&A, but you can start sending your questions in now if you want to. Also, the session is being recorded, and we will send you the recording after the webinar. It might take a few days, and we'll also send you some useful links around search strategy and a little bit more about Sage Campus. So I think we're going to get started. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about developing your search strategy. Let's get to some introductions. I am Maria. I am a Senior Marketing Manager for Sage Campus, and joining us today is our very special guest and Sage Campus author, Dr. Addae-Kyeremeh. Eric is a senior academic and leader with expertise in the development, implementation, and evaluation of educational interventions aimed at improving teaching, learning, and leadership in both formal and non-formal educational settings. He has worked in the further and higher education for over 20 years and in that time written several courses on a range of topics and subjects, including 2 courses for Sage Campus. For those of you who might not know us very well, Sage Campus is a library resource created by Sage, offering a suite of online courses covering key skills and research methods across all stages of academic study. Our courses are developed by experts with fantastic instructors, such as our guest speaker today, Eric, who is the instructor behind the Develop Your Search Strategy course. I think we are now ready for your presentation, Eric, so I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Maria. I will try and take control. And yeah. Think about control. Brilliant. Thanks and welcome everyone to this session. Maria has already introduced me, so I won't spend any more time introducing myself. I'm hoping that you find this webinar useful. For some of you, it may be confirming what you already know, which sometimes is reassuring. But for others, there may be new nuggets of knowledge and information that could help you on your research journey. So as Maria said, do pop your questions into the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer your questions. And those that we're not able to answer, I'm sure Maria and the team will find a way in which we can respond to your questions. So I hope you enjoyed the session. And I will dive in now. Okay, so hopefully by the end of the session, you'll be able to identify some key search terms. Okay, that's the whole idea, that you'll be able to identify ways in which you can sort of identify key search terms in whatever activity you're working on, whether it's a big research project you're working on or it's a piece of assignment that you're working on. Give you some tips and ideas in terms of how to sort of develop what we call kind of a search string of some sort. Hopefully you'll be able to use effective search techniques, and some of the popular ones you will see is the Boolean search. We'll look at keyword search, we'll look at truncation as well. So hopefully you'll be able to, you get exposed to them and be able to use them. Also, you'll be able to use online repositories as well as your own library database. Each of you will be if you're in an academic institution, you'll have access to a massive database through your library. We can't go into every person's, but I have an exemplar of what it could look like in terms of the key aspects of that. So I'll introduce you to that as well. And then hopefully you'll be with that, you'll be able to sort of get an idea of how to search these repositories. We'll also then look at some online repositories and probably use Google Scholar as an example for you to see how that works. And then finally, hopefully you'll be able, once you've picked up all those, your searched, returned some items, you then have to think about how do you decipher all that and identify which results are best for you, for your work. Okay. So hopefully, this short session will give you these learning outcomes or session outcomes. Okay, so we'll start with a short poll just to get some idea of a couple of things. So please, yeah, I'd like to kind of click on them and submit your vote. Let's see what you think. How long does it take you on average on a single literature search? Let's have an idea of how long it's taking people to do this. Oh, quite interesting. It's kind of a split across board. Wow. So it's taking some of you less than 30 minutes, some of you about an hour, almost the same, over 2 hours. So it's quite an interesting split. 22% of you, 31% of you, oh, sorry, 20%, 28%, 22%, 27%. Okay, brilliant. The reason why I kind of put this in there is to try and give us an idea of how much time people are spending on doing literature searches. But again, it all depends on what you're searching for. So it's not a trick question, but just to gauge an idea. So depending on what you're searching for, yes, it could take as long as more than 2 hours. Sometimes it may take an hour or so, depending on what you are looking for. But less than 30 minutes is an interesting one. Because if it's not just a simple, say, a simple item you're looking for, but if it's related to an assignment or a piece of research work, I'm sure it'll definitely take more than that. But it sometimes takes even days. We'll come to that towards the end of the session. Because if you're working on a doctoral thesis, for example, it's endless. Or you're working on a large scale monitoring and evaluation report, it'll take you a long time to get through searching the literature that you need. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so to be able to sort of so thanks everyone for your choices. To be able to sort of search for materials for your studies or assignment, we know for some of you it can be daunting. So depending on where you are in your academic journey, that exercise can be daunting, mainly because there's so much information out there. Okay, the sheer volume means that it's sometimes very difficult to identify the most relevant information you need and in a timely way. So that's why it's very important to kind of have a search strategy in mind before you start that journey. Okay. And to kick off, I've kind of come up with kind of at least these 4 steps to help you whilst you're kind of trying to establish a search strategy. Okay. And the whole idea is where do you begin? Okay. The first thing is you have to decide, you have to start by deciding, have a comprehensive list of what you want to, where you want to search. Okay. This is very important because it'll help you identify if there are any gaps in terms of where you need to go to search. Are you going onto a general online repository? Are you going to your library to do that search? It's very important to think carefully about where you're going to search for the information. Again, is it only digital assets? Do you need access to printed textbooks? You have to think about all that in terms of establishing your search strategy. Your lecturers are likely to recommend that you start with a library search, and it's very important because most university libraries or school libraries or college libraries will have a massive database of resources that you can search from. So starting from there, it's not a bad idea at all. Okay. And your library website will give you access to several online resources, including databases that are subject specific. For example, ERIC, or the Education Research Complete database is one of them. There's Science Direct, but also there are links to international publishers like Sage. So if your university library or school library or college library subscribes, you can have access to their to their repository as well via your library. So that is one of the things you need to do. And then once you have a clear idea of that, you then want to define and the search and then find the keywords that you're going to use. Okay, so you'll be given an assignment of some sort. You have to then think about what the keywords are within that assignment. Okay, you may be conducting your own research, but you still have some research questions of some sort that you'd want to explore. It's very important that you think through about them and ideally write them down, because that's what you're going to develop further to be able to enter into the database to allow the database to reveal the results that you require. The keywords you choose can have a significant impact on your search results. Keywords will be searched for in the title or the abstract fields of the records in the database. Therefore, it's very, very important to use the right words. This will speed up the process and also help you overcome kind of words or responses that you don't actually want. The next thing is then to enter that into create what we call a search string, which you'll enter into the database. Once you've done that, it will then reveal a number of results. We'll see an example much later. But these 4 steps are a good way or a good place to start in terms of developing a search strategy to start this exercise. Okay, so that's one of the things. And why do you do this? It's very, very important, because the simple benefits are that it saves you time, it helps you find better and more useful resources, and most importantly, if you're able to do this effectively, you find resources that are only relevant to your area of work or the research question or the topic that you're researching, which means if you are in an academic institution and working on an assignment of some sort, your chances of getting higher marks, it's high, because you'll be drawing on only relevant literature. Okay, brilliant. Okay, let's move on. So the next thing we want to do is then look at the types of content you access. So what types of content are you accessing in terms of your work? Are they books? Are they conference papers, reports, artwork, etc.? So besides the scholarly articles that you do, what other content are you accessing? Okay, brilliant. Can see. So beyond, yeah. So I think beyond journal articles, it looks like most people are accessing books, and these books are, I'm guessing, are either kind of printed books or ebooks, etc. But that's great. Yeah, it's not unusual that a lot of people will be looking out for books beyond journals. Conference papers or conference proceedings aren't easy to get. Reports, yes, there are lots of repositories that will host reports. Artwork, for those in the arts, they sometimes look for artwork as well. So thanks for answering that. Okay. So all these are likely to be available from your the database that you have access to at the university. It is very, very likely that they will be available there. But what is the database? It's a massive online catalog. So once you log into your university library, you'll have access to this massive online catalog. Okay, and they are grouped in specialist collections. So like when you enter a physical library, you see the different types of collections. They are not different online as well. Most of them have search tools, which will allow you to be more precise in terms of what you're looking for. Okay, but it's good to see that this range is very, very, very important. Okay, so I thought I'll then move on to see what it's like. What could it look like? Okay, so this is just an illustration, and it won't be the same in your own institution. Okay, so what you see on there is just an example of what you could be seeing in your own institution. And the example that I've picked on here is one collection, and that collection is Academic Search Complete. Okay, and within that collection, there will be several different collections in there in terms of topic or subject, etc. Okay, so that's what you get. So on there, you will see what you definitely see on the strip there. That is the collection that we're looking at. But you can also do that by subjects. So whether you're in education, you're in medicine, within your library database, there will be the opportunity for you to do that, scale it down to by subjects. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be a feature on there that allows you to do that. Okay, but within subjects, you can then start thinking about the different bits that you want there. So if you go into the subjects, for example, there are different bits you can find in the subjects, and we will pick up some of them in later on. So on the subjects, you can pick up whether it's a specific discipline, whether there's a subcategory within the subjects or not. Within your library database, it's likely there will be other categories within the subject. So if you go into education, for example, there are different phases of education, and there are different types of links to education. Is it early childhood education? Is it educational psychology? There are so many different subcategories within the subject. So that, again, you can filter down to that. And then there are fields which you can select in there. And what the fields will reveal is a different category for you to filter down as well. So what you see on there is an example for this particular one, which gives you several different fields you can look at. So you can look at, so within that subject area or the subcategory, you can look at the author, you can look at the title, you can look at the abstract, you can look at geography, you can look at reviews. There's so many different fields that you can actually filter down to. So your data, so depending on how sophisticated the database that it is for your university library or college library, you will have the opportunity to filter as much as possible. And the whole idea, as I said earlier on, is to make your job easy, in the sense that if you're smart in your search, by looking at those 4 steps carefully, you can scale down your search significantly and reduce the amount of time it takes for you to search your a search. Because if you do it properly, what then happens is that you'll get exactly, well, you reduce the number of hits that you're likely to get. If you use the right strings, if you do use the right filters, if you use the right fields, it's likely that you're going to get fewer results which are more relevant to the topic that you're trying to research. So it's very, very important to bear that in mind. Okay. So as I said, have to remember your goal is to get relevant results whenever you're searching. Okay. One of the things that you can do, as I said earlier on, is to make sure that you're using the right keywords and then break down the topic into precise themes. Most importantly, different search techniques could be used within different databases. And we'll come to that a bit, because all the databases are developed in a slightly different way. So whilst the format that I've showed you gives you all these clear categories on there for the subject, and the subcategories, etc., they may be different. But there are a number of things that you need to bear in mind. Generally, there are at least these types or search options to think about, or these search options to look at. So one of the very popular search options is what we call the Boolean search. Okay, so the Boolean search operators are the most used in search databases. So if I go, I'll come back to that. So the words and, or, and not are used to look for matches in the title, the author, the subject headings for any entry on the database or repository. So a typical example is if you want to search something on bullying in English schools, you can choose bullying and then use the Boolean operator and English schools. So what that will do is that it will search for all items that match bullying and English schools. So if we go back for a sec, you will see, so on here, you will see the and you see and there. Those are the Boolean operands embedded in this particular search repository. They are different in all repositories. Yours may be lined up differently, but most library databases will have that built into allow that because it's the most popular search search approach or search option. Sorry. So that's what you get with Boolean. The next thing you want to look at is what we call phrase searching. Okay, so we've looking at maybe just what do you call it, bullying and English schools. Okay, sometimes you don't use just the keyword. Sometimes you need a phrase because of the way your research question is or what the assignment requirement is. So phrase searching is another powerful search technique and involves putting two or more words which commonly come together. And what you do is you put them in inverted commas. Okay. The search tool will then look for instances where those words appear together in that order. So, for example, if you're given an assignment to look at what the sort of the challenges of global warming, for example, okay, you know, global warming goes together. So you won't want to do global and warming. You may want to put global warming together because that's the search string, that's the phrase, sorry, that you want. So in your search, you put them in inverted commas so that your search results will return the exact phrase or the exact match of global warming. You can then also do what we call a field search. With field searching, you can make the database search in a particular part of the record. So that's what we looked at in terms of the subject field. So are they looking at the author? Are they looking at the subject? Are they looking at abstract? Are they looking at the year? So you can do that in terms of the field search. Okay, and then beyond phrases, you can just do the keyword or synonym. Keywords and synonyms are very, very important because sometimes people use different words but with the same meaning. So using synonyms is also recommended when you're doing any extensive piece of work because what it does is that it gives you similar literature that is likely to be in the same area. The only difference is that the authors have used different words, but the words have the same meaning. So that's what you get with synonyms. So depending on the type of activity that you're doing, it's very, very important to sometimes write down the synonyms for all the keywords, because if you're not returning enough results, you may want to try using synonyms, okay? And a typical example is, if you take hardworking as an example, somebody may write a piece of a work that instead of using hardworking, they choose to use industrials. Okay, they may be researching the same area, looking at the same question, looking at the same challenges, but they've used different words. So in terms of your search, when you use synonyms, what you get is that you get similar types of work, but people have used different words, but with the same meaning. Okay, and then an interesting one is what we call the truncation. So truncation is when a word ending is replaced by a symbol, and normally that symbol is the asterisk sign. So using truncation instructs the database to kind of search for different forms of the same word, but can expand your search results in such a way that you get the full extension of the word. For example, if you're looking for children, childish, childlike, etc., you can put in child with an asterisk. And what that asterisk is telling the database is that look for the word that starts with child. Okay, looks for the word that starts with the letter CHILD. So it will return children, it will return childish, it will return childlike. sometimes that is also very important, depending on the type of activity or research you're doing. Okay. Right, so let's have another poll. And this time, based on what I've just said, I'm sure you'll have some ideas on there. Let's see which of these you've been using so far, as if you've been engaged in any search or any assignment. It's the highest. It looks like keyword search. It's like keyword search is yeah, it's the highest, followed by Boolean, etc. Yeah. I mean, there isn't an exact science with these things. You use what is most appropriate, and sometimes you use multiple of them. You use a combination of all these. So thanks for responding to that. So let's have a quick example. So let's assume this is an exercise on assignment that someone has been asked to do. It says discuss the impact of food advertising on childhood obesity in the United Kingdom. Okay, so trying to apply what we just did, we can pick out food, advertising, childhood obesity, and United Kingdom as keywords and phrases of interest for this particular activity. Okay, so we then start thinking about how we build the search string to enter. So the assumption is that we would have chosen where we're going to search this, which database we're going to use, etc. So we build a search string that could look something like this. Okay, so we've picked up food, and we're using the Boolean or because we're using a synonym. So food or meals, we're thinking that the authors may be using this, could be using this interchangeably. So look at food or meals. And then we're interested in adverts. So whether it's advertising, advertisement, whatever it is. So we have the advert and the asterisk so that it will return advertisement, advertising, etc. Or we've picked up its synonym market. So with asterisks, it may return marketing, markets, marketization. And we go on to overweight or obese. So overweight could return what we want, or we've picked up a synonym of obesity, but we've gone for obese so that it can return anything similar to that. And then we've done the same with children or child and adolescents. And then we've got the phrase United Kingdom. So this gives you an idea of how to build your search string. So once you've got this, if you've got a database that already has the Boolean parameters already built in, you don't have to type in the Boolean operands. So you type in food, and or the or will be there. You select the or, and then you put the meals in. The same applies to the rest of the set string. But if you're dealing with a database or a repository that doesn't have the Boolean built in, you will have to type it yourself, basically, and we'll see an example in a bit. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what to do within your database. Okay, brilliant. So I now want to move on to beyond your databases. What else is out there? Okay, so apart from the academic databases provided by your institution, which other online platforms or databases do you most use? Let's have a look of what people are using. Okay, Google Scholar seems to be the most used, and it's no surprise when we're writing the develop your search strategy course. Students did tell us that yes, Google Scholar is the most used. So please use that as an example. Tell us how to do things within Google Scholar. Okay. it's impossible to go through extensively in terms of how to navigate Google Scholar, but there's a couple of tips that I will share with those with novices, but that you can always get extensive support on how to use Google Scholar efficiently, either on the course Develop Your Search Strategy on Sage Campus, or I'm sure there will be other websites where you can get a bit more information on that. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so beyond Google Scholar, there are several other online repositories as well, as you can see on there, and the choices that you've made. See, some organizations have created websites that house a range of databases to make it easy for students and researchers. So Google Scholar is one popular one. Core is another one, and Core sort of it's open source. There's Directory of Open Access Journals, there's Lens, there's World of Science, there's PubMed, there's RefSeek, there's several. There's several out there. And these are not the professional association websites, which have some resources, and the huge international publishing organizations such as Sage. No, they're different. These are other repositories that have been created. Some of them are open. Most of them are actually open source, which means you can search them for free. They're not behind a paywall. You can search them for free. But because they crawl the internet, sometimes they review results that are in a paid journal. So if you registered within a university or academic institution or research institution that has access to these resources, then it's much easier for you, because even if they are behind a paywall, you can still access them, because it's likely the institution that you're coming through would have access to them. They would have paid on your behalf. Technically, that's what it is. Okay, so these are not by no means the only ones available on there. So Google Scholar is it's a very popular one. It's a database that has resources on science, technology, engineering, medicine, literature, and it's quite comprehensive in the social sciences as well. It has resources in education, counseling, you name it, legal documents, etc. So it's no surprise that most of you go there to get an idea in terms of what it's got for you in terms of the things that you need. Okay. Core is also quite popular. It's an aggregating open access repository, and they claim that they are the world's largest aggregator of open access papers from repositories and journals. Okay. They also indicate that their website and search engine make it easy to find other repositories and journals by increasing their discoverability. Okay. So although you will still require a library access to gain some of them that are not open access, you can still use them. Most of their resources are open access. That's what they say. Okay. Directory of Open Access Journals, as the name goes, it is the Directory of Open Access Journals, which means almost everything on there is under the open access protocol. So they're available for you to use. World of Science, RefSeek, they're all other repositories that you can use. And again, some of the publications are in open access journals or open access repositories. So what that means is that you don't have to pay for them. They are not behind a paywall. You can have access to them. But those that are not, you'll have to go through a paid service. So either through your library, or you may be subscribing to some of these publication houses yourself. Okay. Right. So we'll just I'll do a quick whiz through Google Scholar. Okay. I won't spend too much time on that, but a quick whiz through it. Okay. So Google Scholar is freely accessible as long as you've got the search engine, depending on which jurisdiction you're in. As long as you've got access to Google, you'll have access to Google Scholar. Okay. And the good thing about Google Scholar is that if you register an account in Google, it unlocks other features. Okay, so that's one of the things that you have to remember. It unlocks other features for you. But what does it allow you to do? It allows you to do kind of simple searches, really. So I'm not surprised it's almost 50% of you use it. Okay, you use quotation marks for exact phrases. So back to what we mentioned earlier on, it hasn't got the Boolean operators. So you'll have to type it yourself. So you use your quotation marks for exact matches, and then you use the and, or, and not operators to refine your search in terms of looking at your Boolean operators. There are advanced features in there. So for advanced users, there are advanced features that you can use as well. Okay. So back to what we looked at earlier on in terms of that search string, I thought I would do a quick Google search to give you an idea of what it could reveal. Okay. I'm not sure whether you can see that clearly enough on your screen. So I did a quick search on food and children and obesity. Okay, so putting food and children and obesity in quotation marks means that I'm looking for food, children, obesity in the title or the abstract. Okay, and then using the and Boolean operator means I want to see all three words in the title or the abstract. And that's what it revealed. And then I wanted to bring this to your notice if you didn't know. Some of these search engines are getting clever and clever. The developers behind the websites and the search engines keep on improving their algorithms and keep on improving their searches. So we're getting closer to a point where we may not even need the quotation marks, because you do the same search, food and children and obesity, and you're likely to get similar hits. Okay, it won't be the same because they're not there yet in terms of that. But you do that, and you sometimes get similar hits. Okay, so whilst we're still advising that to get the exact match, you use the quotation marks. Sometimes you just type in the keywords, and it still reveals enough information for you to be able to do the work that you're engaged in. On the site, you will see the title, you see the authors, you see publication information, you'll see citations and related articles. And then if you're logged in or you're registered, you can save and use the site buttons. You can access options in terms of whether it's PDF, etc. So these are all features available for you. One of the things that is very important for your work is always kind of thinking about the citations and related articles. Because what it means, what citation tells you is the number of times that that paper has been cited. And sometimes you follow it and you look at those who've cited it, they're likely to be doing some work that is related to the field that you're working in. So it's important to sometimes follow that up. The same applies to related articles. You follow the related articles hyperlink, and it will sometimes take you to things that people are doing that are similar to what you're doing. So you find that helpful. Okay. And then, as I said, there are advanced search steps that you can do on there. So you can search by author, by publication date. You can reduce the date range as well. Okay. And then you can use some specific site domains on there as well. One of the things that you can do is to set alerts. So by setting alerts, what that does is that based on the search string that you put in, when an article or when any new entry comes into the Google Scholar database with those phrases, you get an alert, you get an email, you get an email telling you that, oh, this new item has appeared in the database. Is it of interest to you? So that's one of the beautiful things that you do, especially if you're doing an extensive piece of work and will have to constantly be looking at literature. Very, very important. You can adjust the frequency in which you get these based on your advanced settings, but you need to register to get these features. You need to register to the site. Okay. Another feature you can save articles to your library. So once you're logged in, you can create your own small library, save articles there, organize articles into folders if you want to, and that makes it much easier and quicker to find. Okay. Yeah, and I mentioned metrics and citation, so always follow that up as well, because it gives you more insights into what other people are doing, and sometimes it reduces the work that you have to do, because you may find out that by following the citations or similar work, you actually find other very useful papers that are or articles that are important for you. But there are other advanced features as well. I mean, you can now start thinking about integrating them. So if you use a bibliography management tool, for example, you can now start integrating some of these into a bibliographic management tool. So you can export your citations directly into a reference management or bibliographic management tool such as EndNote, Zotero, Mendeley. These are all available. Okay. So in summary, I mean, Google Scholar is a powerful tool. I've sort of put this there. This is what Google thinks. Google Scholar is a powerful tool for researchers at all levels. Okay, it allows you to search and it allows you to effectively identify search items that are very, very important to you. And they can contribute to the scholarly conversation that you want to have, either through written work or through even a conversation. Okay. So that's what you get with working with Google Scholar. But in searching the literature, as I said earlier on, there's so much information out there, so much. So what challenges do you face when you're searching? Okay. Interesting. Yes, too much information I expect to be up there. But I expected access restrictions to be as high as possible as well, because that's what some those not working or studying in an educational institution where they have access to a lot of these via their institution are facing. So a lot of professionals that I work with do struggle particularly with that. So you ask them to read stuff, but because they're not working in an institution that has a paid service to give them access, it becomes problematic for them in terms of access issues. But yes, there's too much information. I mean, for a simple search, if we go back, I'm sure it will reveal more than 2,000 results. You put a simple search string in and you're likely to get loads and lots of results. So then the question is, how do you decide if the results you're looking for are exactly what you want? There are a number of steps that I think you can do. So I've come up with these 8 steps, and I think they can be helpful. I think one of the first thing you need to do is to critically read and select relevant materials. I know it will take time, but it's important to kind of have a plan of what you're going to do, because if you do that, it can be very helpful. So one of the first thing to do is kind of look at the titles that have been returned. Okay. Look at the titles of the journal piece, look at the heading, look at the paragraph at the start of the book if you're dealing with a book, or even sometimes the name of the author, because if it's an author who is well renowned in the field, it's likely that you would have heard of their work, or your lecturer may have recommended them, or even a peer may have recommended them. So it's one of the things that you need to sort of look at. Okay, here you're using your prior knowledge to make an educated guess, but what may be covered you won't get into that detail, but you're trying to make what we call an educated guess. The next thing to think about is scanning the article to assess whether it's worth reading or not. Okay, by that what I mean is read the article in a critical manner. This takes time, but you need to find a way to quickly sift through all the important bits and pick up the relevant information first. Okay, one of the things to do is to try and sort of and depending on how you work, whether using a color coding, whether using color coding if it's online, or whether using a pen or a pencil or a highlighter to try and pick out all those words as you skim read. Very, very important. As you skim read, you highlight all those words that you think are important for you. And then begin to build a picture by deciding on the key points you want to extract from the article that you feel will be relevant for the topic you're researching or what you're studying. Okay, and to do that, sometimes you look out for pointers for keywords in the text. Okay, that is very, very, very helpful. You look out for some pointers in the keywords for the text. By that, what I mean is that a typical example is you take a paragraph. For example, and within the paragraph, there could be something around a concept that is related to what you're trying to do. So once you get that, you'll probably maybe highlight that and mark it up in some way. And then you probably may then want to look at some of the what we say the evidence, because it's very, very important that if you kind of looking at a research piece which is drawing on empirical evidence, you'd want to make sure that what you're reading is reliable. So it's something that you'd want to sort of look at. And then finally, you'd want to look at what I'm calling qualifying words, because that's what you need to be able to develop your argument. So things like you see, therefore, so okay, therefore, therefore what? Or probably, well, probably what? So these help to sort of anchor some of the key things that you may find relevant within the work that you're doing. Okay. Now, I thought I'll also pick this bit, because although going back to what we said earlier on, most of you are probably maybe doing simple searches. That's why most of you said simple literature reviews or simple literature searches. So that's why most said, oh, it takes us about 30 minutes to do a simple search. But if you're working at doctoral level, or you're involved in a large-scale monitoring and evaluation, or monitoring, evaluation, and learning, as they're now being called, you're likely to be doing some extensive work in terms of reviewing the literature. Okay, so I thought I'll pick up something around developing a structured way in terms of doing a literature review, because that will be more than 2 hours. That would take days, and in some cases it'll take months. Okay, that doesn't mean that you sit at your desk for months. No, you'll be revisiting. You go in, you do some today, you go back, etc. So I thought I will kind of pick that up and discuss it. Okay. So to do that, I've given some tips in terms of what to do. Okay. The first is to clearly define the research question or objective of the review, or the study that you're going to do. Very, very, very important to sort of clearly do that. And then establish what you're going to include and what you're going to exclude. Okay, so your doctoral study will be a massive piece of work, and in most cases, we're thinking about contribution to the field. So you're looking at contribution to knowledge, or contribution to methodology, or contribution to practice if it's a professional doctorate. The same applies to large-scale monitoring and evaluation studies as well. So you need to be clear in terms of what you're going to include and what you're going to exclude in your work. Very, 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 very important. Okay. And then once you've done that, you probably then have to think about conducting a preliminary preliminary scoping. So you want to scope what you're going to do first, and by that time you'll be using some keywords, some synonyms, etc., to try and get as much as you want. Okay, and then use this phase to refine your research question as well, because for most students doing doctoral study, the research question that you had in mind when you started the study is likely to change depending on what you come across, depending on what you read. So that's the point where you start refining them. Okay, and then you start thinking about the databases you're going to use. You start developing a search string, and then you actually conduct it. You put it in there. You apply your filters. You look at search validation. By search validation, what I mean is that once you have your search has returned a number of items, you then want to validate them by looking at your research question. Does that really work? Does this synonym actually match what I really want to investigate? That's very, very important. And then you record your search, because as I said, it's not a 30 minutes job, it's not a 1 hour job. You will return to it. So it's very, very important to record the search. You run it again, you screen it, and then the snowballing effect. You do this today, in 2 weeks time, you're thinking, oh, actually, you know what? After reading this and reading that, actually, I want to read this further. So that happens as well. And then you keep on extracting data. And then through conversations with your supervisors or others that you're working with, you start doing your own quality assessment in terms of what you're finding out. Does that fit? Does that work for you? And then you think about kind of synthesizing everything that you're doing as you go. But as I said, it's a journey. But I thought I'll put this in there because it's not something that you do in a day, in an hour. It takes time to do all that. Okay, and then of course you will then put this literature, the outputs or the outcomes of this activity as part of your thesis or part of the large scale M&E work that you're doing. Okay. So I think I'll run the last poll and then we'll probably finish and we'll take some questions. Okay, so here what I'm trying to gather is how much do you trust the information you find through online literature searches? People trust it? Mostly trust. Good. Yes. I mean, it all depends on where it's coming from. But the key thing is that you'll have to do your own quality assurance as well, which is by kind of whilst you skim reading, you put on your what we call your critical reading lens. You put that on and make sure that whatever you're reading is relevant to the piece of work that you do. But yes, I mean, over the years, all these online repositories have improved their algorithms. They have improved the resources that they are uploading on there. So they are getting better. There's still a lot of junk on the internet, but there are lots of important and relevant resources on there as well. So I will stop here and give you the opportunity to ask questions. I think we have some questions, I'm sure, through the Q&A. So we'll try and pick some of them up. And as Maria said, we'll find, if we're not able to answer all the questions, we'll find ways in which to revert back to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Eric, for that. That was really, really helpful. A lot of very insightful tips there. We've had some questions before the webinar started when people registered, so we can start with that, and then we'll go into some of the ones in the Q&A. So a question that came up multiple times was about, and it makes sense, was about using generative AI such as ChatGPT for searching and research. And I think it would be good just if you could just let us know what your take is on it. Obviously, people will have different opinions on it, but what is your take on it?
Firstly, it depends. Are we talking about 3.5 or 4.0? Okay, so 3.5 is still learning. So it spews out quite a lot of stuff that needs double checking and triple checking. So the whole idea about generative AI is not like what you get with the databases that we're talking about, which are fed with information. So they spew out what has been fed in terms of the information in there. Generative AI hasn't got that database. Okay, what it's doing is it's looking at possible words that can go with others. So sometimes you can find out some words can go together, but actually, when you check the authors did not write that paper. It's just that those names go together. That's what generative AI does. So for 3.5, it's tricky. You'll always have to do your double and triple checking. You can ask the question, it can give you some pointers, but you need to check. 4.0 is a more advanced version, and that's the paid up version. And you can train it. That's the thing about you can create your own GPT in 4.0. So if you have 4.0 and you can train and you can generate your own GPT, then yes, it's something that it can do better than you can get with the 3.5 version, which is the free version that most people have access to. But there are several other generative AI tools around. I mean, there's several ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT has become quite popular, but there's Semantic Scholar, there's elicit.org. They have a portal that actually is trying to do that. I think one that I've looked at as well is an app, the Consensus app. So there are quite a few generative AI tools out there that are trying to do this for us. But please always check.
Yes, I think that's always a good advice.
Yeah.
One other question that we had, a few people actually asked the same question, was what are some of the most common mistakes when starting a search that you have experienced?
If you don't plan. That's why I said at least develop your own, depending on the type of activity that you're doing. A lot of my search cannot be done in 30 minutes. A lot of my work it requires a lot of critical literature review, so they're not done in a day. So you have to plan them. You have to plan them. You have to plan them in the way that it works for you. So the key thing is your keywords. Key thing is you're looking for the right keywords that will allow you to return the most relevant information. The next is the databases. Where are you searching? It's very, very important, because if you don't search in the right places, you won't get the right returns that you want. The next thing is that long list that we went through in terms of how do you decipher all the hits that you'll get. You'll have to get creative. It takes time. It takes time. As you develop your critical reading skills, sometimes you're able to pick up the article. You don't have to read even a quarter of it, but immediately you're able to discount it, say, no, this is not relevant. Okay. But it's a skill. It'll take time to develop. But the key thing is developing your idea, developing search strings. How do you write a search string that is most efficient for you to search any database? That's your starting point. And your choice of database will be very, very important, or repository.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And how do you determine when your search strategy needs adjusting? Is keyword order important?
Keyword order is important if you're not doing a direct match. Because, for example, if you do, it depends on the topic. Because sometimes child obesity may not mean the same as obesity in children. It looks bizarre, but depending on what you're investigating, using the keywords child obesity may not necessarily mean the same as investigating obesity in children. So yes, the order in which you use your keywords can matter depending on what your research questions are. Is there a most efficient way to do it? It's difficult to say without knowing the exact topic you're researching. But the key thing is that develop the right search string for the topic, and then use the right database. I mean, apart from Google Scholar and all the other web repositories, if you have access to a library database, you have to choose the right one. So if you're in education, choose the right one. If you're in medical sciences, choose the right one. If you're in the social sciences, choose the right one. That's the key thing. And that's something that I think you can always get support from your library. Your university library or college library would definitely have learning information managers who can help you with that. But if you're relying on the online repositories that we talked about, I'm afraid if you go to Web of Science, you're exposed to everything that's in the Web of Science.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, libraries and librarians are your biggest allies, I think, at this stage. So I will echo that. I think we don't have time for any more questions, but
What a
we
shame.
we will address them in blog posts, and we'll find other ways to answer those questions. But thank you so much, Eric, for your presentation today and for your time. This was really, really helpful. And to everyone who is here, who has attended, thank you for taking the time. We are very happy you joined, and we will send you all an email with the recording after in a few days, as I said, and some useful links for you as well. So look out for that. And yes, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.